She fell into the millionaire's lap in first class, but when he pulled her close in with intensity. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to today's story. Emma Brooks couldn't believe her luck as she stepped into the upscale New York City restaurant. The elegant hum of conversation and the soft clinking of silverware filled the air, but her mind was racing. She was out of her element. Her second-hand dress felt like it belonged to someone else. Her shoes were scuffed, and her nervousness clung to her like a heavy coat. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she'd show up for this blind date. But now, standing in the warm, sophisticated space, she wished she could turn around and run. Her heart hammered as she glanced around the restaurant, searching for her date. Table 7, she muttered under her breath, trying to calm her nerves. She scanned the room, her eyes finally landing on a man sitting alone at a table in the back. He was dressed impeccably in a dark suit, his dark hair neatly styled. He seemed engrossed in his phone, barely looking up. That has to be him, Emma thought. She took a deep breath and walked toward him, a forced smile on her face. Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you. Liam Parker looked up, startled. He blinked a few times, clearly confused. He opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated, as if weighing something in his mind. Hi Emma, he said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Emma, thinking his hesitance was just a sign of shyness, slid into the seat across from him, smoothing her dress. Oh, I know, blind dates are always a little weird, right? She said with a nervous laugh. Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us. Liam smiled faintly, unsure of what to say, but instead of correcting her, he simply went along with it. Right, blind dates are something else, he replied, a small, amused glint in his eyes. Emma smiled, feeling a bit more at ease. She was about to launch into more awkward small talk when her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Her heart sank as she read the text. Asterisk. Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you. Kevin. Asterisk. Emma froze. She looked back at Liam, her face flushing with embarrassment. You're not Kevin, are you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered, and for a brief moment, guilt flashed in his eyes. No, I'm not, he admitted, his voice soft. Emma's stomach twisted in embarrassment, and she stood up quickly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, she stammered, her cheeks burning. I must have sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing. Without waiting for a response, she grabbed her coat and bolted for the door, her mind spinning. Liam watched her leave, a strange feeling settling in his chest. He hadn't intended to let her run off, but something about her had kept him rooted to the spot, unsure of how to react. Why did the thought of never seeing her again feel so unsettling? He stood up, watching her hurry out of the restaurant, a mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. Meanwhile, Emma rushed out of the restaurant, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't even look back as she pushed through the door and into the crisp night air. She could feel the weight of her mistake in every step, her face still flushed with embarrassment. I'm such an idiot, she muttered to herself as she walked down the street. How could I do that? She couldn't stop replaying the scene in her head, sitting at the wrong table, thinking he was Kevin, and then running off without a second thought. It was like something out of a rom-com, but there was nothing funny about it now. She just wanted to forget the whole thing ever happened. But as she reached the corner, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen. It was a text from Jenny. Asterisk. So? How did it go? Is he cute? Asterisk. Emma sighed and texted back. Asterisk. I think. I just embarrassed myself for the 100th time. Asterisk. She shoved her phone back into her purse and kept walking, trying to shake off the uncomfortable feeling that clung to her. But she couldn't stop thinking about Liam. Why had he been so calm, so understanding, when she'd made such a fool of herself? She'd never felt more out of place in her life. Still, there was something about him, something that made her want to see him again, even though she couldn't figure out why. Maybe it was just because she'd never met anyone like him before. Emma couldn't stop replaying the awkward moment in her head as she walked home, her mind racing with embarrassment. She had actually sat at the wrong table, thinking she was meeting Kevin, only to discover she had mistakenly sat down across from a complete stranger. The moment had been so surreal that it almost felt like something out of a romantic comedy. But instead of laughing it off, she was left feeling humiliated. She barely remembered the rest of the evening, but she couldn't stop thinking about how Liam had looked, his calm demeanor in the face of her blunder, his quiet, almost amused smile. Why hadn't he corrected her immediately? Why had he allowed her to sit there and make a fool of herself? And why, after she ran off, did it feel like a part of her wanted to turn back? She had never experienced anything like that before. She had seen wealthy men before, men who had everything, but there was something different about him. It wasn't just his clothes or his confidence. It was something deeper, something genuine. Still, she tried to push the thoughts from her mind. She had to move on, right? She couldn't afford to dwell on someone she would probably never see again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Jenny. Emma rolled her eyes as she read the message, then typed back quickly. She hit send and shoved the phone back into her bag. She didn't want to think about it anymore. The entire evening had felt like a blur. The only thing that kept replaying in her mind was Liam's face, the way he had looked at her, the soft way he had smiled. She had never seen a man like that before. But it wasn't just his looks that stuck with her. It was the way he made her feel like she wasn't just another waitress, like she mattered, even if only for a moment. She shook her head, trying to snap herself out of it. She muttered under her breath as she made her way home. The streets were quieter now, the hustle of the city slowing down for the night. As she walked, she thought about her life, about the small apartment she lived in, the rent she could barely afford, the dream she had of opening her own art studio. It felt so far out of reach sometimes, and nights like this made it feel even farther. Emma sighed, wishing for a different life, wishing for something more. But that was just a dream, wasn't it? She would never get out of this cycle, this constant struggle. The next morning, Emma woke up to an empty apartment. Her roommate Jenny had already left for her job, leaving Emma with her own thoughts and the noise of the city outside. She pulled herself out of bed, still feeling the weight of the previous night's awkwardness. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification from her email. She opened it, expecting nothing more than another job rejection. But then her eyes went wide as she read the subject line. Her heart skipped a beat. Liam Parker? The same man she had accidentally sat next to the night before? It couldn't be. But there it was, in black and white. An invitation to an exclusive gala, and his name was right there. She couldn't believe it. How had she not recognized him? Liam Parker was a tech millionaire, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the city. He was everywhere, on the news, in magazines, even on billboards. And now, she was being invited to a gala where he would be a guest of honor? This had to be a mistake. She stared at the email, her mind racing. Should she even go? What if she ran into him again? What if he remembered her, and she had to face the awkwardness all over again? Her heart pounded at the thought. But then, a strange sense of curiosity tugged at her. What if this was some kind of sign? What if she could actually make something of herself, take a step into a world she never thought was possible? She shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. This was crazy, right? It couldn't be real. But deep down, she knew she couldn't pass up the opportunity. She had nothing to lose, and maybe, just maybe, this could be the chance she had been waiting for. She clicked on the RSVP link and confirmed her attendance. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement in her chest. What would happen when she saw Liam again? Would he remember her? Would she embarrass herself once more? All these questions swirled in her mind as she prepared for the event. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something. She just didn't know what. Later that evening, Emma found herself standing outside the grand venue, a large building bathed in the soft glow of elegant lighting. She had never been to anything like this before. The gala was everything she had imagined, polished, sophisticated, and absolutely out of her league. But she didn't back down. She took a deep breath, adjusted her dress, and stepped inside, ready to face whatever came her way. The moment she entered, she felt like a fish out of water. Everywhere she looked, there were wealthy men and women, dressed in designer clothes, sipping champagne, laughing and chatting. She felt so small in comparison. She wandered around for a few minutes, unsure of where to go or what to do, until she saw a familiar face in the crowd. Liam. He was standing near the center of the room, talking to a group of people, his confident demeanor standing out even more in this high-class environment. She froze for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. She was tempted to turn around and leave, but something kept her rooted to the spot. He looked up then, his gaze meeting hers across the room. For a brief moment, their eyes locked. Emma's breath caught in her throat. He smiled faintly, his eyes still holding hers as he excused himself from the group and started walking toward her. Emma's heart raced. This was it. The moment she had been dreading and hoping for. Emma's heart was pounding in her chest as she stood frozen in the middle of the crowded gala, her eyes locked with Liam's. She felt as if the entire room had faded away, leaving only the two of them standing there in a bubble of intense silence. His smile was faint, but it was enough to send a wave of warmth rushing through her, erasing all the embarrassment from their previous encounter. As he walked toward her, she could hardly breathe. What was she supposed to say? She had run away from him the night before, humiliated herself in front of him, and now here she was, standing face to face with him again. Would he remember her? Would he bring up the awkwardness of that first meeting? The uncertainty was overwhelming. But as Liam got closer, something in his eyes told her that he wasn't here to make her feel bad. Instead, there was a flicker of curiosity, of something more genuine, and Emma felt her nerves begin to calm, even if just a little. Emma, he said, his voice warm, steady, and completely unruffled. It's good to see you again. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She had been rehearsing what to say in her head ever since she received the invitation, but now, standing in front of him, all of those words felt meaningless. She finally forced a smile, trying to shake off the awkwardness. I didn't expect to see you here, she said, her voice a little too high-pitched, betraying her nervousness. Liam chuckled softly, the sound rich and inviting. I didn't expect to see you either, he replied, his smile widening slightly. I'm glad you came. For a moment, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, everything could be okay. Maybe this wasn't as awkward as she had imagined. She swallowed her nerves and asked, So, what brings you here tonight? Liam's eyes sparkled with amusement, but there was something else there too, a deeper, more knowing look. A few business things, he said casually. But honestly, I was hoping I might run into you. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Was he serious? He was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company, and yet he was saying that he wanted to see her again? It didn't make sense. She trailed off, unsure of what to say next. Her mind was still processing the fact that Liam, a man who could probably have anyone he wanted, was talking to her like this. He was still looking at her with that same warm, steady gaze, and Emma felt herself growing more and more comfortable under it, though the feeling was new and strange. Look, Liam said after a moment, his tone turning more serious. I know we had that, odd start the other night, but I really enjoyed talking to you. It felt, he paused, as if searching for the right word, genuine, and I'd like to get to know you better. Emma was stunned. She hadn't expected that. She had assumed he would just move on, laugh off the awkwardness, and that would be the end of it. But here he was, saying exactly what she needed to hear. No pretenses, no games, just a simple, honest desire to connect. I don't really know what to say, she stammered, her heart racing again. I mean, you're Liam Parker, the CEO? I'm just a waitress. Her voice faltered at the end, but Liam didn't flinch. Instead, he looked at her with a seriousness that made her feel like she mattered. And I'm just a guy, he said, his voice softer now, almost as if he was speaking to someone he trusted. That's all I am. I don't care about your job or where you come from. I care about who you are. The words hit Emma harder than she expected. She felt the walls she had built up around herself begin to crumble, the doubts and insecurities that had always kept her distant from people slipping away. But, she started, trying to hold on to her skepticism. I mean, you don't even know me. You don't know anything about me. Liam smiled again, the kind of smile that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. I'd like to, he said simply. And I think you'd like to know me too. What do you say we grab a drink and talk? Emma hesitated for a moment. Everything in her told her to run, to keep herself safe from the unknown. But something about Liam's presence made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could take a chance. Okay, she finally said, her voice quiet but steady. Let's talk. And with that, they walked together toward the bar, away from the crowded room, into a space where Emma felt for the first time that she could truly be herself. No pretenses, no walls. Just two people, ready to discover something new. As they sat down at a small table in the corner, Emma couldn't help but feel a little lighter. Maybe this wasn't just a chance encounter. Maybe this was something more. She wasn't sure yet, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. Maybe this was the start of something she had been waiting for, something she had never imagined could happen to her. As Emma and Liam sat down at the small table in the corner, the noise of the gala seemed to fade away, replaced by the soft hum of conversation from other guests and the clinking of glasses. The contrast between the elegant surroundings and the feeling between them was surreal. For a moment, Emma felt as if she were in a completely different world, a world she had never thought she would belong to. She looked at Liam, who was casually sipping his drink, his posture relaxed but his eyes never leaving hers. There was no hint of judgment in his gaze, no superiority, just a calm understanding. It made Emma feel like she could finally breathe. So, what's it like being a tech millionaire? She asked, trying to steer the conversation away from the uncomfortable silence she felt building. Liam chuckled softly, setting his glass down. It's a lot of work, he said, his tone light. But there was something deeper behind his words. People think it's all glamorous and easy, but it's not. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. But I guess you get used to it. Emma nodded, trying to imagine what it would be like to live in his shoes, surrounded by the constant demands of running a company. She could barely keep up with her part-time job and rent payments, let alone manage something on that scale. That sounds exhausting, she said, more to herself than to him. Liam leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if he was contemplating something. It can be, but you learn to find balance. I think I'm still learning. Emma was surprised by his honesty. Most people in his position would have boasted about their success, their wealth, the things they could afford. But Liam wasn't like that. He seemed real. She found herself opening up more than she had intended. I can't imagine that kind of pressure, she said, her voice soft. I'm just trying to keep it together. I work at a diner. I barely make enough to cover rent, and every day feels like a struggle. She couldn't believe she was saying this to him. She didn't even know him. Yet, here she was, sharing her worries with a man who could probably solve all her problems with the snap of his fingers. But for some reason, she felt like she could trust him. Liam didn't interrupt. He just listened. And somehow, his silence made her feel heard, something she hadn't felt in a long time. I know what that's like, he said quietly. Before everything changed, I had my own struggles. Things weren't always easy for me either. Emma's eyes widened. She had never thought of Liam as anything other than a successful, wealthy entrepreneur. She had assumed his life had always been easy, that he had always been at the top. But hearing him say that made her pause. What do you mean? She asked, genuinely curious. You? Struggling. Liam's lips curled into a small smile, but there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood, he said, his voice soft but steady. My family didn't have much. I worked hard to get where I am now. It wasn't handed to me. Emma was speechless. She had never imagined that Liam, this seemingly perfect man, had ever known what it felt like to struggle, to worry about paying bills, to wonder if there was enough money for rent. It made him feel more human, more relatable. I guess we all have our battles, she said quietly, feeling a sense of understanding between them that she hadn't expected. Liam nodded, his expression serious. Exactly. And it's those battles that shape us. They make us who we are. For a moment, there was a comfortable silence between them. Emma felt the weight of her worries lift just a little, as if talking to Liam had given her a new perspective. She didn't feel so alone anymore. I think I understand that, she said, offering him a small smile. Maybe I've been too focused on the struggle and not enough on the things that really matter. Liam's gaze softened, and for a brief second, Emma saw something in his eyes that made her heart race. It wasn't just empathy. It was something deeper, something she couldn't quite name. You'll get there, he said gently, as if he could see right through her. And I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. The words hit her harder than she expected. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like someone believed in her, like someone saw her potential. It was a feeling she wasn't used to, and it left her both vulnerable and empowered at the same time. As the night wore on, the conversation flowed more easily. They talked about everything and nothing at all, until Emma lost track of time. She had no idea how long they had been sitting there, but it didn't matter. She was no longer thinking about the fact that she was just a waitress, no longer worrying about the difference in their worlds. All that mattered was that, for the first time in a long while, she felt like she mattered. Just like Liam had said, maybe things would get better. Maybe this was just the beginning of something that could change everything. As the night went on, Emma found herself laughing more than she had in ages. Liam had a way of making her feel comfortable, even when they were talking about the most mundane things. She had always been the type of person to hold back, to hide behind her insecurities, but with him, it felt like she could be herself. It was strange and a little scary, but it was also the most freeing feeling she had experienced in a long time. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't thinking about the pressures of life, the weight of her student loans, the late bills, or her endless shift at the diner. Instead, she was just living in the moment, enjoying the connection they were building. They shared stories, laughed at silly jokes, and talked about everything and nothing at all. It was refreshing. She didn't realize how much she needed this kind of distraction until now. Liam was so easy to talk to, and his kindness felt genuine. It wasn't something she was used to, especially from someone in his position. Emma had always felt like she had to prove herself, to be more than what she was, but with him, there was no judgment, no expectations. He seemed to see her as more than just a waitress. He saw her as Emma, as a person. It felt like a small, but significant, shift in the way she viewed herself. After a while, the music from the band in the corner began to swell, and the room around them seemed to blur into the background. Emma didn't want to leave. She didn't want this moment to end. She had no idea how long they had been sitting there, but she felt like she could stay forever. "I didn't think I'd ever be in a place like this," Emma admitted, her voice quieter now, more thoughtful. "A place where I'm actually having a real conversation with someone like you." Liam raised an eyebrow, his expression curious but gentle. "Someone like me?" he asked. Emma bit her lip, unsure of how to explain herself. "I mean, someone who has everything, success, wealth, power. I never thought I'd be in a position to actually talk to someone like you, let alone feel like this." There was a pause, a brief flicker of uncertainty in her words, but Liam didn't let it linger. He leaned forward slightly, his tone soft and sincere. "You're a lot more than you give yourself credit for, Emma. You have your own kind of strength, and that's something I admire." Emma felt her heart skip a beat at his words. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. It was simple, but it made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above the music. I don't know if I believe that, but it means a lot to hear you say it." Liam's smile was kind, reassuring. "Believe it," he said quietly. "You're stronger than you know, and I think you're going to do amazing things. Whatever you set your mind to, I'm sure you'll get there." Emma looked down at her drink, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. His words felt different than the empty compliments she had heard before. There was a depth to them, a sincerity that made her believe him, even if just for a moment. "Maybe you're right," she said, her voice soft but filled with a sense of possibility she hadn't had in years. "Maybe I've been so focused on what I don't have that I've forgotten to appreciate what I can do." Liam leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving her face. "That's a good place to start," he said, his voice thoughtful. "You've got a lot to offer, Emma. Don't sell yourself short." For a moment, the noise of the gala faded into the background, and all Emma could hear was Liam's voice, calm and steady. It felt like the world had narrowed down to just the two of them, as if they were in their own little bubble, where everything else didn't matter. She wasn't sure what it was about him, but there was something magnetic, something that drew her in. She had been so lost in her own world, caught up in her struggles and her fears, that she had forgotten what it was like to just be with someone and feel understood. Liam was showing her that it was okay to relax, to trust again. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. As the evening continued, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They moved from light-hearted topics to deeper ones, sharing their hopes, their fears, and everything in between. Emma felt a sense of connection with Liam that she had never thought was possible. She was beginning to see that maybe, just maybe, she could have more than she ever imagined. She could have a life where she wasn't just surviving, but truly living. It was a thought that both scared her and excited her in equal measure. By the time the night came to a close, Emma realized that she wasn't the same person who had walked into this gala just hours earlier. She had walked in unsure of herself, uncertain about her place in the world, but now, she was starting to see the possibilities. And, for the first time in a long time, she was beginning to believe that she could create a future that was her own, one where she didn't have to hide behind her insecurities or limitations. As they said their goodbyes and she walked out into the crisp night air, Emma couldn't help but smile. It wasn't just the night that had changed her, it was the person she had become in the process. The days following the gala felt like a blur for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about the conversation she had shared with Liam, the way he made her feel like she mattered, like she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She found herself replaying every word, every glance, every moment from the evening in her head. It was like a dream, one she wasn't sure she was ready to wake up from. Her routine at the diner resumed, but everything felt a little different now. She walked a little taller, carried herself with a little more confidence, as if something had shifted inside her. She couldn't put her finger on it, but she knew that meeting Liam had opened a door she had kept locked for a long time. It wasn't just about him. It was about the way he made her see herself, the way he made her believe that maybe she could have more than just a life of struggle and disappointment. She had always felt like she was stuck, trapped in a cycle of barely getting by, but after that night, after hearing the words he had said to her, she started to believe that maybe she could change things. It wasn't going to be easy, of course. Emma had no illusions about that. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a purpose, like she had something to work toward. It was a feeling she hadn't had in years, and it filled her with a sense of hope that she hadn't realized was missing. Liam had given her a glimpse of a life she hadn't dared to dream of. He had shown her that it was possible to live outside the constraints she had placed on herself. She knew it wouldn't happen overnight, but it was a start. A small one, but a start nonetheless. A week passed, and Emma couldn't help but wonder if she would ever see Liam again. She had told herself not to get her hopes up, that their connection, as real as it had felt, was probably just a fleeting moment, a chance encounter that would soon be forgotten. But there was a part of her that refused to believe that. He had said he wanted to get to know her, that he was interested in her, and for some reason, she believed him. One afternoon, as she was wiping down the counter at the diner, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at it, expecting to see a message from Jenny or another work-related text, but when she saw the name on the screen, her heart skipped a beat. It was from Liam. Hey, Emma, I know it's been a little while, but I was wondering if you'd like to meet up for coffee sometime? I'd love to catch up and hear how you've been. Emma stared at the message for a few seconds, her mind racing. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected to hear from him again, especially not so soon. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. What did he really want? Was he just being polite, or did he genuinely want to see her again? Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure of how to respond. But then she remembered what Liam had said to her the night of the gala. He hadn't been like other men she had met. He had been real, sincere, and kind. She had nothing to lose by saying yes. She took a deep breath and typed back, her fingers trembling slightly. I'd love that. How about tomorrow afternoon? She hit send before she could talk herself out of it, and almost immediately, a reply came back. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 2. Emma smiled to herself, feeling a little giddy. She hadn't felt this way in a long time, and it was a welcome change. The next day, as she waited outside the diner for Liam to arrive, she felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. She had dressed carefully, wanting to look good but not too flashy. She wasn't trying to impress him. She just wanted to be herself. She glanced down at her watch, and just as she was about to check her phone, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Liam stepped out, looking effortlessly stylish in a dark jacket and jeans. He flashed her a warm smile when he saw her, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. Hey you, he said, walking toward her. You look amazing. Emma blushed, feeling a little self-conscious. Thanks, she said softly, her smile shy. You're not too bad yourself. Liam chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I clean up pretty well, don't I? He said, teasing her lightly. Emma laughed, feeling at ease in a way she hadn't expected. So, she said as they got into the car. How's everything going? How's work? Busy, Liam replied, starting the car and pulling into traffic. But it's going well. Can't complain. How about you? How's the diner life treating you? Emma smiled, a little embarrassed, but grateful for his genuine interest. It's the same, really. Busy, stressful, but it pays the bills, she said, her tone light. I'm working on saving up for an art studio, though. That's my dream. Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. I think that's a great dream, he said. I've always admired people who chase their passions. Emma looked over at him, surprised by his sincerity. She hadn't expected him to understand, to take her dreams seriously. Thanks, she said, her voice quiet but sincere. It means a lot to hear you say that. Liam glanced over at her with a soft smile. You've got the drive, Emma. I have no doubt you'll get there. The words lingered in the air, and Emma felt a swell of emotion rise in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she felt like someone believed in her. She wasn't just chasing a dream. She was on her way to making it a reality. As the afternoon sun bathed the streets of New York in golden light, Emma and Liam drove through the city, their conversation flowing easily. Emma was surprised by how comfortable she felt around him. It was as if their connection from the gala had only deepened, and now, sitting next to him in his car, the world outside seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Liam had a way of making everything seem so simple. They laughed and joked, sharing stories of their childhoods, their experiences, and even their little triumphs and failures. It was nothing groundbreaking, but it was real, something Emma hadn't experienced much in her life. The more they talked, the more she realized just how different he was from the people she had met before. There was no pretense with Liam, no pressure to impress. He was just himself, and that made everything feel so easy. As they reached a small cafe, Liam parked the car and turned to Emma with a smile. I know a great spot, he said. It's quiet, perfect for just hanging out. Emma smiled, feeling a little nervous but also excited. I'm in, she said. He opened the door for her, and they walked inside together. The cafe was charming, cozy, with soft lighting and quiet music playing. In the background, they ordered their drinks, and as they sat down at a small table by the window, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. The world outside seemed so far away, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. The conversation continued, and soon they were talking about dreams, about the future. So, what's next for you? Liam asked, his voice gentle. Emma hesitated for a moment. She had never been one to talk about her hopes for the future. It was always easier to keep her dreams to herself, to protect them from the harsh realities of her life. But with Liam, it felt different. She didn't feel judged, she didn't feel small. I want to open an art studio, she said quietly. I've always loved painting, and I want to share that with others, help them find their own creativity. Liam's eyes softened as he listened, and she could see the sincerity in his gaze. That sounds incredible, he said. You have the heart for it, Emma. I can tell. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected Liam to be so supportive, so genuinely interested in her dreams. It made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could make them come true. Thank you, she whispered, feeling a surge of gratitude. That means a lot. For the first time in her life, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have more than just a job she didn't love, more than just a life of struggle. Maybe she could have a future filled with passion, with purpose. And maybe, just maybe, she could build that future with someone who believed in her. The thought was both terrifying and thrilling. What about you? Emma asked, eager to learn more about Liam. What do you see in your future? Liam leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. I don't know, he said after a moment. I've been so focused on building my career that I haven't really thought about what comes next. But I think I'm starting to realize that there's more to life than just business. Maybe it's time to focus on the things that really matter. Emma looked at him, her heart stirring at his words. There was something so grounded about him, something that made her feel like everything was going to be okay. It wasn't just about money or success. It was about living a life that mattered, a life with purpose and connection. I think you're right, she said softly. We all need to figure out what really matters, don't we? Liam smiled, his eyes warm. Exactly, he said. And I think you're already on the right path. Emma felt a swell of emotion, a mix of gratitude and hope. She had always been afraid of stepping out of her comfort zone, of reaching for something more, but now, With Liam's words, she felt like it was possible. Maybe she didn't have to settle for the life she had always known. Maybe she could take a risk, follow her dreams, and build the future she wanted. The idea seemed less intimidating now, less like an impossible goal, and more like a reality she could make happen. As they finished their coffee and chatted for a little while longer, Emma felt like she was starting to see the world in a new light. It was like the fog had lifted, and she could finally see the path ahead of her, clearer than ever before. The future didn't seem so uncertain anymore. It felt like it was within reach. And with Liam by her side, she felt like she could take on anything. As they left the cafe, Liam offered her a soft smile. "I'm really glad we did this," he said, his voice warm. Emma smiled back, feeling something stir in her chest. "Me too," she said quietly. "Thank you for this. For everything." Liam's smile deepened. "Anytime," he said. "I'm here for you." And for the first time in a long time, Emma believed him. As the days passed, Emma couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened between her and Liam. She had always kept her dreams close to her chest, too afraid to share them with anyone. But now, for the first time, she felt like there was a real possibility of turning them into something tangible. His encouragement, his belief in her, had sparked something inside her that she hadn't realized had been buried for so long. The art studio was no longer just a dream. It was a goal, something she could actually work toward. But it wasn't just about the studio. It was about her own transformation, her realization that she was capable of more than she had ever allowed herself to believe. She found herself spending late nights sketching, planning, and organizing what her future could look like. Liam's words had lit a fire in her, and now, she was determined to take the steps necessary to make her dreams a reality. The diner felt more like a stepping stone than a permanent place, and the thought of doing something for herself, something that brought her joy, filled her with excitement. It was scary, though. Every time she thought about taking the leap, a part of her hesitated. What if she failed? What if she wasn't good enough? But then she would remember Liam's kind words, his unwavering belief in her, and that fear would begin to fade. He had helped her see a version of herself she hadn't thought possible, one that could take risks, chase her passions, and believe that she was worthy of more than just getting by. One evening, as Emma was closing up at the diner, she checked her phone and saw a message from Liam. "Hey, Emma, I was thinking about you. How's everything going with the art studio plans? Would love to hear more about it when you have time." She smiled, her heart warming at the message. It had been a few days since they last talked, and she had been working on her plans, but it was nice to know he was still thinking about her, still interested in her journey. She quickly typed back, "I've been working on some sketches and a business plan. It's all coming together, slowly but surely. I'm feeling more confident about it. Thanks to you." A few moments later, Liam's reply popped up. "I'm so proud of you, Emma. I know you can do this. Let me know if you ever want to bounce ideas off someone. I'm here for you." She couldn't help but feel a rush of gratitude. His support meant more to her than he probably realized. It was one thing to receive encouragement from friends and family, but from someone who barely knew her, it felt different. It felt like someone truly saw her potential. She had to admit, there was a part of her that had started to look forward to these little exchanges with him. She enjoyed their conversations, the way he made her feel like she mattered, and the way he was always so thoughtful. Over the next few weeks, they met up more frequently. Sometimes it was for coffee, other times for a casual walk through the park or a quick lunch in between her shifts. They kept their conversations light, but there was an unspoken connection that seemed to deepen each time they spoke. Liam would ask about her progress with the art studio, always encouraging, always there to listen, and Emma couldn't deny that it was starting to feel like they were becoming more than just friends. He had an ease about him, a way of making her feel at home with him, even when they were in a crowd or doing something simple, like sharing a meal. But Emma was cautious, as she always had been. She didn't want to rush things, didn't want to get ahead of herself. She told herself that they were just friends, even if a part of her heart was starting to hope for something more. She couldn't deny the chemistry that was growing between them, but she wasn't sure if Liam felt the same way. One afternoon, as they sat at their usual cafe, Emma found herself staring at Liam, her thoughts wandering. He was talking about an upcoming business trip, but she was barely listening. Her mind was consumed with the thought of what this connection could be. She was pulled out of her thoughts when Liam suddenly stopped talking and looked at her, his gaze steady and serious. "You're quiet today," he said softly, his eyes searching hers. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never been good at hiding her feelings, and it seemed like he could see right through her. "I'm just thinking," she replied, her voice a little shakier than she intended. "About everything. About the future." Liam nodded, as if he understood exactly what she meant. He reached across the table, his hand resting just inches from hers. "You don't have to do it alone, Emma," he said, his voice low and reassuring. "Whatever you decide to do, I'm here for you. I always will be." Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she was speechless. She hadn't expected him to say that, but hearing those words made everything feel so real, so possible. It was like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders, and for the first time, she realized that. Maybe she didn't have to face everything alone. Maybe, just maybe, she could build the future she had always dreamed of, and Liam would be there, cheering her on every step of the way. As weeks went by, Emma's world began to shift in ways she had never imagined. With Liam's support and encouragement, she started taking real steps toward her dream of opening an art studio. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when she questioned whether she was making the right decisions. But with every small victory, she felt a little closer to the life she had always wanted. She spent her days at the diner, working tirelessly to save up money while also planning and organizing her business. At night, she would sketch new ideas, design the layout for the studio, and research the steps she needed to take to turn her dream into reality. It was overwhelming, but it also felt exhilarating. She was doing something for herself, something that mattered to her. And Liam was right there by her side, always offering advice, listening to her concerns, and pushing her to keep going. They grew closer, their friendship blossoming into something deeper. They spent hours together, talking about their lives, their dreams, their fears. And somewhere along the way, Emma began to realize that what they shared was more than just a friendship. There was something more, something unspoken, that had been growing between them. One afternoon, as they sat in the park, enjoying the rare moment of peace, Liam turned to Emma with a thoughtful expression on his face. "You've come a long way, Emma," he said, his voice gentle. "I'm really proud of you." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Liam's smile softened, his gaze never leaving hers. "I told you from the start that I believed in you. You just had to believe in yourself." Emma felt her heart flutter at his words. There was something about the way he looked at her, the way he always made her feel seen, that made her chest tighten with emotion. "I think I'm starting to believe in myself," she whispered, her voice barely above the breeze. Liam reached for her hand, his fingers gently brushing against hers. "I know you are," he said, his voice low and full of sincerity. Emma's breath caught in her throat as their hands intertwined, a simple gesture that held so much meaning. She looked up at him, her heart racing. "Liam," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what this is, what we are, but I think I'm falling for you." Liam's eyes softened, and he took a deep breath, as if collecting his thoughts. "I think I'm falling for you too, Emma," he said, his voice steady and sure. The words hung in the air between them, and Emma felt her heart swell. She had been afraid of this, afraid of opening herself up to someone again, but in this moment, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "You don't have to be afraid, Emma," Liam continued, his thumb gently brushing the back of her hand. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for you always." Emma smiled, feeling a tear slip down her cheek, though it was a tear of happiness. "I've been so afraid of letting someone in, of trusting someone," she whispered. "But you make me feel safe. You make me believe that I can have everything I've ever wanted." Liam pulled her into a gentle embrace, his arms wrapping around her as if he never wanted to let go. "You can have everything, Emma," he said softly into her hair. "I'll be right here beside you, every step of the way." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma felt like everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed about, was within reach. She wasn't alone anymore. She had someone who believed in her, someone who would support her, no matter what. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly loved. The future no longer seemed like a distant, unreachable goal. It felt like something she could build, something she could share with Liam. Together, They would create the life she had always dreamed of, one filled with passion, love, and the courage to take risks. As they pulled away from the embrace, Emma looked up at Liam, her heart full. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. "For everything." Liam smiled, his eyes sparkling with love. "There's nothing I wouldn't do for you, Emma," he said softly. "You're my everything." In that moment, Emma knew that her life was about to change in ways she had never expected. She wasn't just building an art studio. She was building a life. One full of love, support, and the belief that anything was possible. With Liam by her side, she was ready to take on the world.